So my name is Terry, and I'm back with Dave and Carly. We're the Dave and Carly Show. And so what do you think, Dave? I'm kind of tired today, so what are we doing?
I don't care. I mean, it's your show. I mean, you're the one with the hands on the computer, and I am merely the talent. All right, I don't have any control over what it is you're gonna do.
Come on, you guys.
Jeez.
Really? Is this how you're gonna act behind the camera? Terry, are your eyes even open right now?
Well, like that's gonna help you see better. Let's see, Terry, how's your eyes? Can I see?
You guys, we need
Terry,
to get in the right
eyes?
mindset here, okay? This is still an interview. How do you prepare for a in-person interview versus a virtual interview? It's the same thing, right? I know for me, I just have to remind myself that I can do it, take some deep breaths. I've mentioned this before, it's not just rolling out of bed because you're at home, but you still want to get dressed up. I might not have nice pants on right now, but Terry even has her heels on. I think that's a good mindset to go into your interview with. It helps your mindset to say, okay, this is something that's professional. This is a real interview. Just because you're behind the camera doesn't make it any less real. It just makes it safer during COVID-19 times. And you might be quarantined to your house right now. But really, you need to do whatever it is that you do to prep for an in-person interview. You should still be doing that behind your camera.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, think about the nerves that are going to come, just the nerves that are going to come out. You know, if you're not prepped, you're going to get more nervous. But I mean, there's all kinds of things to consider. So one of the things we talked about in an earlier video is how you might think that a virtual interview is less personal, right? It's more impersonal. Truth of the matter is, it's not much different when it comes to level of interaction than a face-to-face. If you think about, in a face-to-face, you're going to shake their hands, sure, but there's going to be a lot of other things going on. If you're at a job fair, forget it. It's impersonal. But this, while I can't shake your hands, I mean, it is just you and me, right? We're having this conversation. So any distractions that I'm adding, which could include, well, it's not like they can see me or anything, right? Because I'm not near as focused. And Carly, what do we talk about? You know, subject matter experts. I mean, goodness gracious, you might not be just a recruiter that I can BS my way through, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes with a recruiter, they're just making sure you are who you say you are. So if it's a subject matter expert though, and you're not engaged, I mean, you can look really foolish really fast because they know what they're talking about. They know if you're making it up as you go.
Yeah, you really need to do your research, be prepared for this interview. Again, it's like you would do with an in-person interview. You want to know the company that you're applying for. Maybe you already know the name of who's going to be interviewing you or who's in charge of the department you're looking to interview with. Knowing their philosophy and what the company's goals are, if that's something you can do. So research before, know what it is that you're interviewing for, and really prep yourself so that you're in that mindset of, I can do this. This is the job I want, and I'm going to do what I have to do to get this job in my interview, not just, well, I'm tired today and I still have my pajamas on because I've been in quarantine for 3 months now. And, you know, I'm just kind of, it's not a time to be lazy. I know it's sometimes nice to be at home. You might feel a little more comfortable in your home than you would in walking into a boardroom where they're interviewing you, but use that comfort to your advantage, not your disadvantage of just kind of sulking into it. Really put yourself out there, get in your right frame of mind to do it. And again, know that subject matter that you're going in the interview for.
Well, and I want to take it and flip it from lazy too, because you can be really overconfident and maybe even condescending. And you know how when you are in a group interview, you know, you can kind of feel that a little bit. But if you're condescending and kind of a jerk in a face-to-face, I mean, we talked about the personal versus impersonal style. I mean, if I'm like, okay, if that's the answer you want, right? I can play how many times have you heard this in interview practices? well, I suppose I can play the game, right? If that's your mindset, if your mindset is this is a joke, I'm going to get that right away. And again, if I'm the subject matter expert and you don't know it, and you're like throwing terms out because this recruiter's not going to know any better, you know, you're going to get caught really easy, because chances are the virtual interview that we're having, it's not the interviewer's first interview, right? You're not their first rodeo. And so they're going to get lazy. They're going to understand that, you know, like you said, you might be in quarantine. And so there might be some stuff going on. But if you're a jerk in the interview and you're like aloof or above it all, it's going to take about 30 seconds for them to figure it out. So you need to be focused and professional and all the things we're talking about, prepared, but not condescending.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good example of how condescending came across for one of my clients. So I had one of my clients call me after an interview, and he said, I just went to this interview and they asked me the most stupid questions. And then they had 4 people in the room and 2 of them were talking while I was answering questions. It was really distracting. And he said, I asked him at one point, why would you ever ask me that? And I said, so what position were you applying for? And he said, middle school teacher. And I said, what do middle school teachers do a lot of? Or what do middle school students do a lot of? I said, they ask silly questions. And classrooms, there's noise and there's side conversations going on. And I said, you know, that whole interview was likely set up to test your ability to function well in a classroom of middle school kids, and you kind of failed that test. And so, you know, there's a lot of really sophisticated interviewing processes out there right now, and you need to answer every question they ask you as though it is a serious and important question. And
Yeah.
so that's
one of the examples that I have, which I think is pertinent to what we're talking about. And I respect everybody's college and their education and how some colleges specialize. And so if you're a St. Thomas grad watching this is not a shot at your school. I'm actually pretty impressed with your school. But I interviewed a guy once, and it was for a management position, and St. Thomas has an excellent management program. And when we talked, I asked him a question, and he, honest to God, looked at me and said, well, you know, I graduated from St. Thomas. And I was like, okay, well, could you answer the question? And he followed it up with, right, but I graduated from St. Thomas. And so that little bit of arrogance that it was passed across was so off-putting. I mean, he didn't appreciate the question. Okay, whatever. He thought the question was, like you had said in your example, maybe beneath him, or just why would they ask me a question like that? But the answer isn't, well, I graduated from the U, or I graduated from St. Cloud State, or in this case, I graduated from St. Thomas. Right? It is, answer the question. You know, don't get frustrated. Don't get put off because on a video or a virtual interview, being put off, being frustrated is even more obvious, because I mean, we're relatively close. I can read your face pretty good. And if you're like rolling your eyes or answering it with kind of a flippant response, I'm going to get that vibe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are important points. So what about you, Carly? Anything else to add to that?
I think we did a pretty good job. We had 2 really good examples of how you can come across in an interview, and maybe how you probably shouldn't come across in an interview. There I went rolling my eyes. So just to be aware of all of that is to, fully answer your questions, be in that mindset that everything is clear to you, and that you will be able to do what it is that is expected of you in your interview, and to know that subject matter that you need to interview on is all really, really important tips.
and prepare yourself emotionally. You know, people can be very concerned about their finances right now. Maybe relationships are under a strain, things like that. Prepare yourself ahead of time so that you don't go into the interview. I would say maybe a good term would be needy. So you're going into the interview and you're asking questions like, well, what's the wage going to be? What's your healthcare plan, et cetera, et cetera. Those aren't that is not the time to ask those kinds of questions. You need to put your financial worries and your relationship worries aside the best you can. Process those things with somebody before the interview so that you have developed a positive mindset going in, and those things are.
So Terry, that's a great point. If you think about it, Tinder rules apply here, and that is desperate's never sexy, right? So if you are asking questions that really don't have anything to do with the job, you look desperate. And you know what? The next person I interview who doesn't ask questions like that, is focused on the job at hand, you're going to go down the list really, really fast. Because, I mean, you're not in it for the gig, you're in it for a gig, right? The other thing you need, when you said emotional, the first thing that crossed my mind is cussing. Because so often cussing is something that we do that's commonplace, right? When it's just you and me and we're off camera, we can have any kind of conversation we want. But when you're on camera and it's an emotional thing, sometimes those filters that we have can loosen a little bit. And you don't mean it, but you have to purposely think about what the other person is hearing from you. So, you know, a simple slip up and throwing a curse word out there that you think might be okay because it's something you use in common language might not be okay to the person you're talking to, and frankly might be a big red stripe right through your name on the interview process.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably being at home, like in your home environment, you might, if swearing is something that you do more often, I would have to guess you do it more at home than versus in your office or job place or public. So your environment that you're in could kind of maybe cause you that comfort that you feel of being home could lead to that too. So yeah, that's something to definitely watch for.
All right. So have we killed it?
I think so.
All right.
So this is one of those times that I have to be careful of my mouth. Yes, we did, because my first response was just what I said on the video not to do. Like a boss. We'll just say it that way.
Like a boss. Okay, Dave.